Howdy. So, if you clicked on this video thinking that it was going to be a nice ASMR build, just go ahead and click away because it's going to be more explanation more than anything, because I've already done a few things to the blade and the tang and the block of wood, but I wanted to show you, or at least share with you what is going on. So I have one of these blanks from Hele, and this is one of the fillet knives, and it's one of my favorites because it's not too flexible and it looks good, right? They have that signature mirror polish. So first thing that I did was I ordered the closest looking or fitting bolster, right, which was this. You can see how it has a few scratches on it already. That's because it really didn't want to fit on here, and I actually had to take a drill bit and a Dremel to be able to make it fit. Whenever you're fitting some of these, right, what you really want to focus on is right here. Ignore that side, we're going to clean that up, and so is that side. But you see how right here, there'll be that little gap right here, the little notch. You want to make sure that when you drill at a little angle at the bolster, so that sits nice and flush, especially during gluing, because then this is what's going to happen. You don't want that. Another thing that you really want to do is that since some of these come mirror polished, right, so does the tang. So you want to make sure you hit it on the belt grinder, and then we're going to scallop along the edge to make sure that it has proper adhesion whenever we epoxy it together. I'm going to take this apart real quick. Next, I want to go into how much of a tang we keep, right? Roughly, the shape that I want, it's a pretty big block, is, you can see it right here, wish I had a Sharpie, but they're all gone. Roughly like that. And then, there we go. Hopefully you can see it very well. So, we know, logically, that we cannot take this whole plank and drill a hole in any way, shape, or form of that thickness or thinness all the way through. Impossible. So what we're going to do is actually trim the tang. I have made the decision that a good size for that tang is already there, pre-marked, right there. Notice how it's pretty much 3/4 of the way down the handle, and it's going to turn out good. And a lot of people are like, well, that's very little tang, etc. Here's the thing. Epoxy is so strong that it won't matter. Like, it'll create a permanent bond. Have you seen those videos on YouTube in which they take two pieces of wood and they glue them together with wood glue, and they try to break them apart and it breaks somewhere else? Well, imagine that being epoxy, but times probably like 10 or 100. So I'm very confident. I've had people break handles off and it's nowhere near where the tang would be. And along with that, we want to be able to give it a nice curve. Man, I really hope this. There we go. And make sure that right here is nice and round. Another reason why we chose that length of tang is our limitations on drill bits. Whenever you are drilling through, and by the way, I'm making another knife in another video, so it's probably already out, which is very similar shape from another mirror polished stainless steel lorry blade. Our next limitation would be drill bits or bits. The biggest issue is that a lot of these small bits don't come in long. And if they do come in long, they don't come supported, and they're not like stiff. So what they'll do is they'll often skate and wander. Not only that, but whenever you're drilling into something like wood, those fibers will make it wander. Sometimes you see a lot of my videos that I'll make 3 holes, and I will put a little starter dot on them so I can drill straight. And then what happens is like, or it just happens. Same thing like when you're using a screw to screw into wood. Yeah, same thing that happens. My limitation with the tang is that, conveniently enough, I have a drill bit that is that size. That, conveniently enough, is the thickness, not the width, the thickness of the steel. So we got that going for us. If not, then what we have to do is that I have to take the wood, and then I have to split it or cut it, and then drill with, let's say, a smaller one, to then glue it together, and it just starts being too tedious. And not only tedious, but then whenever you want to keep a nice block of wood like that, I don't see if you can, I don't know, yeah, you can see how it's white, and then it has some nice heartwood right here, difference in colors, kind of right here too. I want to keep that, and if I was to cut it, right, because some of these are much shorter, especially the ones that are collared, then what happens is that right there'll be a split. And though that doesn't look horrible, it would have to be in several places, right? For me to make the tang longer, and then overall, the mock-up, the glue-up, the effort, and obviously the variables of where it could go wrong increase exponentially, like super exponentially. So I'm just gonna record this, and I'm gonna see some of the processes while I'm putting this together. But thus far, that's what I have done. I sanded right here. We're gonna scallop this. I'll put an example of what that means because I don't want to show the exact process. Somewhere right here should be plain as I'm blabbing, and I want to sand the imperfections off because I want to make it look pretty, especially when you have such a handsome knife. Yeah, but now that I'm looking at this particular design, I might keep that shape of handle, but then somewhere along right here, cut off, because naturally, right, what's going to happen is that we are going to be able to drill through a block of wood. And okay, hold on, let me show you. I have other chunks of wood that are darker and different grain patterns. So our limitation is this depth of drill bit, so we can use a nice piece of darker redwood. This one's sycamore, and the other one, I don't remember the exact wood, but that's fine because I'm not selling to somebody. I am actually gifting this. So what I can do is that, bam, showing to you. Woo. So we know that right here, we're going to be able to drill through that perfectly. And then since our piece of wood right here will be cut, that we can drill further into, and we can almost have all the way through tang. Would that matter? I personally don't think so, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh man, I kind of do want to do 2 pieces of wood, but I might actually flip it over because I want to keep that. Actually, yeah, that's what I might do because I like that variant that we want to keep right here. So I'll just cut a little piece of wood and send it. Yeah, except it has a crack, so we have to see. That's the one thing about using locally sourced materials, that you want to be nice and eco-friendly, but at the end of the day, eco-friendly often looks like cheeks. And I got all this wood from a local place, Urban Timber. I always shout them out, some son of San Diego, and they have great selection of wood, especially because it's local. They work with people who need trees removed and stuff like that. But then the main issue is the fact that whenever these woods are drying, like sycamore and stuff like that, it starts cracking, and then you're left with a pile of nice square machined table sawed pieces of wood that you need to throw in the fire pit, and I don't really like them. Another one that I often don't really speak too much or touch on is grain structure, right? So we know that this is what we want. We want a grain. What I want is an end grain because it'll look a little prettier. It'll just serve. See, you can see how it'll go down. But notice how the handle would go. This would be like this. So having the grain like that does look good. It's kind of like, I guess, the etiquette of tattoos, right? So if you were to get a tattoo right here of like a face, and the face is looking this way, that's where you want to look inwards, because if not, then you have a face looking that way into your armpit. Same thing. You have to use some kind of intuition to look at this and be like, oh, well, this is the handle, right? It's going to look like this, and I want the grain to look downwards so it flows, because if you have you're holding like this, you don't want the grain to go upwards. It would look better if it goes downwards. Maybe that is me thinking too much into it, but that's just my personal opinion. I've also had nobody else complain. If you don't agree with it, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I love seeing other points of views. I'm going to end up using this end because it also has some nice coloring, and the reason why I'm using end grain, right, and I'm not just cutting right here, is because then it's going to look, I don't know, it doesn't look as good, in my opinion. It goes from straight to not end grain. I don't like it. I know I'm just blabbing, but if you're here, it's because you want to learn. You actually want to get something out of this. I appreciate that. I have cut a block of, holy crap, I don't know where in the, I don't know why it came off so wobbly, but we'll deal with it. I think it's because originally when I cut the piece of wood, there was a slight misalignment in the table saw. But anyways, I have it right here, and I want my end grain to be like that. See, doesn't that look nice? Would you rather look like this? Or yeah, like that. See, I don't like it. One of the issues with this handle shape, right, which I love making this, is the fact that it wastes so much wood. You need a block of wood to make that shape, especially for people with bigger hands. Whereas some of my other shapes, I don't have examples laying around, are just using actually 1 inch by 1 inch blocks, or 1.5 by 1.5ers. This is using almost 2x2s, which is fine if you have scrap wood or something like that. But in scenarios like this where you have a nice block, you can get several offcuts of it, right? In reality, whenever you're processing the wood, you see that you can. This came from a much wider piece of wood. You could have gotten 2 blocks instead of 1, because this is the measurement of 1.5, right? So it's 1 and some change, so it would be like right here. So it's wasteful, but I like the way that it looks. And at the end of the day, it's also much easier to process. All I really have to do is, if we spin around, we go in our table saw, and at the very bottom in our contact wheel, which would be the opposite of here, is right? And sometimes we can just take this to miter saw and cut it, but often I just do one of these. And the shape is very easy to machine. All you really have to do is blend the lines in, and then you clamp it down and sand to the belly right here, and it looks nice. It ends up looking fantastic, in my opinion, but wastes a lot of wood. But it's fine, because when would this be used? It would be a really good use for, oh man, this wood has termites or something, holes throughout, kind of like spalted tamarind and stuff like that. But yeah, so what I'm going to be doing now is show you how I mark for drilling. Okay, so it looks kind of messy right now, but it's one of the only, there's a few knives gluing up right now. Let me show you how I determine. You need a whole lot of tools, and I take pride in that. Don't mind the chickens in the background. So we know a few factors. We know our shape of our knife, right? So we know off the bat that this is how we want to shape, so we're going to do that. And we'll do 1 extra mile so we can know where that is. We know this is where. We want to do center lines. I'll worry about this one later, because this is a smaller block. I can show you. We know that in our handle, shaped like that, we want the grain facing downwards. So what I like to do is, you see, there we go. Let me move this a little bit. Apologies. What I like to do is draw sides, right? So we know that this is going to be your right side. This is going to be your left side. We know that. We know our grain orientation is want to be face downwards, so we're also going to do right side, left side. What else do we know? We know that we're going to need center lines for just about everything. I just like to take my knuckle and do one of these. We have our center line. What else do we know? We know that if that's going to be our center line, we want our blade to be roughly in the center. Notice how our blade roughly in the center doesn't mean that that's where the actual center hole would be, because it's slightly offset. So what I like to do is, for our mental piece, we're going to roughly, but saying roughly a lot, huh? I'm going to put some marks right here to know where our blade width would be. We then will go to where that would be and mark where the tang is. Now that we know where the tang is, we use our method. Bam. We know that our holes have to be here. Next, we know that we have found this drill bit, which would be the best drill bit to use because of our thickness, and that's where we need the holes to be. We can roughly see that's going to be 1, 2, about 2.5 or 3-ish. So we're going to use a nail. I use a center punch, but I want to show you that you can indeed do it with just a screw. So what I like to do is go right there. And now we have a little tiny hole. The little tiny hole is going to help the drill bit get in there. Equilaterally, we want to go, and bam. Mind you, this is really important. Whenever you're drilling, Don't be tempted to put the the pilot hole right here, because when it drills, you'll have an extra half of whatever measurement this is. Happens a lot of machining. And then, bam. Okay, so this one is more method and show and tell than me actually showing you, right? Or explaining to you. We're gonna drill those 3 holes with the drill bit. You will notice that then it'll kind of look like an 8, because well, it's gonna be look like an 8 with an extra little ball at the end, which is good because we're gonna drill these perfectly straight. There's gonna be 3 of them, and then we're gonna go to the middle one and do one of these as we go through. What that does is create a slit. So instead of having a drill bit that is this big, because let's say this is a 1/4 inch, if I was to drill a hole that is a 1/4 of an inch, that's a lot of meat, especially when the bolster's only that thin. So it would be a significant amount. This is better, and overall has a tighter fit, less wobble, and the mock-up or the glue-up is going to be much more efficient. And you have more material to adhere to each other, and a lot of people just use a nice big hole, like I've seen Condor do that. But now I do that. Let me show you. Just like if we were drilling the block, we have our pilot holes. We're gonna hold it nice and stiff. I like to go with the lower one. We're not going all the way through in the first one. We want to have holes to start. And notice how we have the 3 little holes, and then what? We're gonna go to the lower one, and then lastly, the middle one. What would I say we're gonna do? Middle one. Notice how I was just moving it around, squirreling, and now we have a slit. Well, that was not a good idea. A little hole. Pretty, and it's pretty straight. You know, it's not moving. It's not wandering a whole lot, and you can see that. Well, I can't really show you too well. There's not a whole lot of room there. It's much better than a hole because, bam, you can do this very efficiently. Now, oh, wrong one. There it is. We're gonna do the same operation on this one to drill the holes. We know that we have this, so we need a center line. We did this one, right? And we know that that's the center line of our hole, so that's where we need to make the following one, which funnily enough is nowhere where we marked it, but that's where we're gonna have to do our next 3 holes. Now, drilling into end grain a little bit harder than drilling into side grain. Reason being is because the fibers kind of like twist, so you want to be extra careful and give yourself plenty of room to just adjust this so you can see me do silly little things. We can do them together. So we know that in our center mark, we're going to do 1 hole. I have a scribe. So You guys know I have a scribe. I'm only doing this like that because I want to be able to show you guys that you indeed can do it. And then right there. Now, if you're a pro and you're on X Games mode, right? What you can do is drill you drill a little bit of each one, but you drill the middle one all the way through. So essentially, what you effectively do is this: you drill a straight hole. Then the other two, you drill at an angle. So you have a triangle-esque cavity like that. Am I gonna do that? Absolutely the hell not. Not risking breaking a drill bit over doing that when a slit will be just fine. And it would be useful in knife shapes in which that is the thing, but this is straight. So, but if it was like that, then yeah, absolutely. More power to you. Well, let's go drill. Same operation. Sorry, everything is dusty and overall messy. Bam, bam. Now you're gonna be drilling through a significant amount of wood here. We measured our tang, and we have decided that that is how much drill bit we want. I'm gonna particularly start with, man, one of them is kind of crooked already off the rippy. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know that we have straight holes? Well, if they weren't straight, what would have happened is we would have been drilling and boop, drill bit would have fallen into the next hole, which you see that didn't happen. And we know that we weren't drilling that way because we would have poked out at least significantly, or we're going to find out later on. So now we can make our slit. The best way to make the slit, so you're not doing one of these pivotings all the way down, because if you were to pivot all the way down, then what happens? You start making an extra wide cavity, kind of like a fan. So what I like to do is give it perhaps 1/4 of an inch, and then join the holes like this. Go to the top one. Wrist breaking the bit right now. We need more support. The bit has flute, and the wood is soft, so we can do this. This is not the obvious right way of using a bit, but hey, I mean, here we are. So down to almost that point, we know that it's all conjoined into a slit. We can one of these. At one point, you're going to find how it's going to be just like the very edge. So you can just go ahead and do this. Inch a little bit more, and then kind of like a router. Am I confident? No. Is it pretty straight? Very. The next important part is mock-up. We know that we're going to have a bolster. We know that we're going to have 2 blocks of wood. And we know that we're going to have to clean them. But we want to make sure that everything is straight. We know that the first block of wood is straight. We're not going to put the bolster. Bolster is going to be straight. We know. And we want to make sure that it is straight in here. Oh, well. We know we need to cut off quite a bit of tang right there. But it's fine because look, it'll be very big. It'll be protruding out the back. So that way, make sure that we cleaned out the slot, because sometimes there was gunk in there. That's not going to make it any stronger, I promise. Oopies. Poke my eye out. When I have that, bolsters, nothing, just insignificant. So we need to cut about 2 fingers worth of tang from the end of this. More or less, we are ready to glue. We can have this right here. Bam. You know that we're pretty straight. We have our little scallops and our little sharpness right there. We'll degrease the handle, and we are ready to roll. It looks good. I like it. Obviously, we're going to trim off a little bit here, but we can do that once it's dry. Another really good benefit of using this much wood is that if for some reason this glue's crooked, you have so much material to be able to tailor to it, which is not like a good practice, but I mean, it's there, so I mean, might as well use it if you need to. In between, we're going to be putting a piece of felt, right? I used to use canvas, like cotton canvas, but then you would need 3 layers of it. A lot of my videos, you see there's 3 layers, and then you see me like struggle with the epoxy. There's gloves. Man, a piece of felt is already very thick, and it'll give you a nice noticeable black line. Well, we're gonna need 2 of them, because we're gonna need one between the bolster and this piece of wood, and then one between this piece of wood and the next one. Now imagine if we had canvas in that equation, or multiple colors, right? So you would need 3, so another 3, so that's 6. And if somebody wants, see people do black, then red, then black, or black and white, so now you have 3, so that's 9, and then 12 pieces of canvas that you need to individually soak, dip, align, cut, etc. And when you're working with epoxy that takes a very short time to dry, you don't want to do that. You don't want to mess around. So that's why I have moved on to felt. Oh, also, you can't particularly buy canvas in small scales or a bunch of crazy colors. You can buy felt at Joann's or Hobby Lobby, or whichever one is not closed anymore, even Walmart, in the craft section, and it makes a nice consistent line. Because sometimes canvas, what would happen is that even though it's black, like jet black, interwoven throughout the black fibers, you could see a small little white. So you see a nice black layer, and then you see a little speckle of white. I don't care, but just another drawback to using that material. So that's why you can use things like fibra or vulcanized fiber. Is that what it's called? Vulcanized fiber? Or fibra from Trollsky. You like that? But it's expensive. It's like $8 a sheet, and the sheet is only like what, like 8? It's like the standard size of a piece of printer paper. Not worth it to me when I can buy 99 cents for a whole printer size piece of paper worth of felt, and you don't have to use multiple layers, but they are very vibrant. Next will be my commentary, but I'm not gonna comment on epoxying everything together. I can give you a few tips. You can see some of my older videos on what would be your best approach for this, but here's my best approach. Some people are like, oh man, you're using a whole lot of epoxy, but we have spent, well, however long this video is, I have at least been working on this video and making this for the past hour and some change. Wow, hour and some change. Whoop-de-doo. If you've ever ran out of epoxy halfway through gluing, you would understand exactly why I use so much epoxy. I need a mat. So this is, I don't want to, well actually, you guys will be seeing it, but. So, currently, I knew how much epoxy I needed for the other knife that I made earlier. I needed about a quarter of one of these tubes. This is the Harbor Freight epoxy. Currently, I can go to Harbor Freight and get one of these for like $1.50. So it's very good quality. I also looked up the data sheet on it, tensile strength, stuff like that. So I've gotten used to making knives with these. I used to use the Loctite 60-minute, but now I can use this one, 5 minutes, works well. Use a quarter tube, or about a third of a tube of this one to glue the previous knife. So, I know that. You don't know that. So, to use the rest of that, I need the small version, which is just like a fart dollop worth more. A third, if you will, even though it's half the size. The reason why I use so much epoxy is that if in the middle of you gluing, you run out of epoxy, you have effectively screwed off the whole progress that you've done thus far. And some blades, you physically cannot recover them out of epoxy. You can smash the handle away, but you're gonna have to grind. But you know how much effort that's gonna take if you have a mirror polished blade? To then do it all over again. Drilling the hole, making sure the holes is correctly drilled, cutting the felt, doing this and that, right? So 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour worth of work. If you're doing this for the first time, maybe it's gonna take you 2 hours, right? All that just to save what? $1.50 of epoxy? It's just insurance. Use extra epoxy. However, I will say, whenever I do epoxy a knife, if I have leftover epoxy, I have a mental list of everything in the house that needs epoxy. Oh, the knob on this broke off, blah, 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 blah. Is going to get epoxied with whatever congealing epoxy I have left. My next tip would be gloves. I've gotten pretty good at it because I use chopsticks, and disposable chopsticks, eco-friendly, they're bamboo. And I can do that. But maybe you don't know how to use chopsticks. I live in Japan, so maybe you don't know how to use chopsticks. I recommend gloves because it's all about how much cancer you want to catch. I have chopsticks, so I'm good with that. But if you wear gloves, disposable gloves, not only disposable gloves, but get 3 gloves. 2 on and 1 extra in your back pocket or one of your pockets. So whenever you have to do one of these and get rid of the glove or throw away the epoxy, you have an extra glove ready. Because sometimes you start getting sticky, and then you start finger touching everything, and see how messy this one got. But notice there's no epoxy in there. Just squeeze all that. I'm like that. But yes, gloves for sure, and alcohol on standby, or denatured alcohol. But I'm in California, so they don't sell that here. Acetone, because sometimes you will get it on something that you don't want to get it on, and then you have to clean it off. So, no fun. That's my epoxy spiel. Oh, make sure that you know how epoxy interacts with whatever materials that you are currently gluing. What does that mean? I'll give you a great example. Whenever crazy glue lands on a synthetic fiber, do you know what happens to it? It starts smoking. It generates heat. It can catch on fire. If you, for some reason, I don't know, which one did it happen with me? One time when I was starting out, very, very young, it's like 14, making knives, I took an old pair of sweatpants. It was sweatpants. And I used the fiber in there instead of canvas, mix it with the epoxy. And it was the Gorilla Glue brand epoxy, which heats up. That one heats up, I promise. And it caught fire. The actual block caught fire. And once it catches on fire, man, what are you gonna do? Had to salvage it. And lastly, come on, use epoxy. There's people using glue like Uhu, Crazy Glue, or wood glue. Come on, it's not that expensive. For you to be making a knife that you've put labor into it, assuming that you've put maybe 2 hours worth of labor, that's a significant amount of labor that you would put into it, where it would be justifiable to actually use epoxy, to spend the extra money, especially if you want something to last a very long time. So you actually use epoxy. Don't use wood glue. Don't use Gorilla Glue. Promise. And let the epoxy rest. So I glued this one earlier. It's gonna sit there. Well, it's gonna sit out of direct sun, first of all, for about 2 to 3 days, sometimes a week. Not because I'm lazy, even though I am. Gonna let all that cure and relax and congeal. Though it says 60 minutes, an hour, and then 24 hours after that, it's not. Let it sit, especially if it's hot or if it's cold. If it's I lived in Missouri when it would be really cold, and the basement where I used to make knives, then what would happen would be is that it would not heal as efficiently, or solidify it sufficiently. So it would, instead of taking 24 hours, it take 48 hours for it to even actually get all the way hardened and not be gummy. The way you can tell is that whenever you finish your epoxy, you can keep your dollop where you're mixing it and then play with it a day later and see, oh, it's actually hard. Oh, let's put it to the belt grinder. Let's see how it holds up. Sometimes epoxy still stays gummy. And that might be a thing where you didn't mix it all the way thoroughly. So keep in mind that. Okay, so we glued up. I'm going to strap it together. But we want this. We want it to be dripping out. So all those fibers that means that internally we made sure that everything was nice and stuffed. So all those little gaps that maybe were just like not quite there are now filled with epoxy. But notice that it's pretty straight. No, sorry, I should have done a better up view. There we go. But yeah, while it's drying, oh man, remember that I was like, oh, let me make sure that this is the correct orientation. I did it backwards. Oh well. I really don't spend like 2 minutes earlier being like, yeah, the orientation and the tattoo. I just to glue it backwards. Just be like that. Sometimes you just gotta roll with it. So I cleaned up some of these edges, right? Just to see what it would look like. Make sure that the glue didn't happen correctly. But you see what I'm talking about, the black line? In another knife, in which I made a video of, this is what I want to shape it as. I'm not done with this. I need to sand it and make it pretty. But it looks good. That's exactly what we will be doing with this one. With one of these. But not this belt. This belt is ugly. Okay, so fun fact. I'm sorry, I'm shirtless now. There is a angle grinder wheel. I'll show you right now. Wakata. Right here. If you have one of these and a $20 angle grinder, you could make all this happen like fast. Faster than the belt grinder. I just am used to it. I had 2 types of designs that I was like, oh, let me do this, but I felt like I was going to run into the tang, so we're going to go with the other one. But, yeah. But don't feel like you need a belt grinder to do all this, because you can do it with one of these, and I have done it, so. Okay, so we did the unforgivable curse. We run into the tang. See? We weren't even near. I guess it angled this way. So from now on, I'm going to show you how we successfully finish this knife. It might not look anywhere near this, but we did finish it. Okay, so after many struggling, well, essentially what happened was that I ran into the tang in the middle of me grinding. Sometimes that happens. It just be like that. Sometimes you drink a little bit too much and hey, that's what happened. But I made it up by making it into a burl handle. Doesn't it look pretty? I also ran into the blade right here. Oh, you can't even tell I polished it out. Man, I'm good. But I'll show you the corn too. Ain't that pretty? It looks like lava. This is a Coliba burl from Hawaii. Ethically sourced, of course. But yeah. So, oh, I gave it a little lanyard hold because this is a filleting knife. You might want to have that. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for following me. If you like this video, give it a like. Let me know what you would like to see in the comment section. I always like to see people's comments because they bring me ideas and I love the criticism and I like to talk back too. Thank you for watching.